Greetings. Welcome. And my name is Jennifer Benson, and I work with the Ohio Coaches and Mentoring Network. And we are going to talk today a little bit about the prevention credentials. This is just a basic overview, what they are, what they mean, and how you get them at a very basic level. Um, don't feel bad if after this you still need help because most people do. It's all right. So again, just wanted to let you guys know a little bit about what OCAM is. We are funded through OMAS, and we are hoping to just build some prevention um, workforce development throughout the state of Ohio. So the objectives for this recording will be that you'll be able to state what those Ohio prevention credentials are. You'll be able to say why someone should be credentialed, and then you'll be able to, on a very high level, be able to complete that credentialing process. But again, you may need some individual coaching, and that's okay. So just as general, the credentials are through the Ohio Chemical Dependency Professionals Board. So those who get the CDCAs, all of the treatment credentials are through the same board as the prevention credentials. So when you look at it, you'll see that there's kind of a mixture of things on the board site. There is an introductory level that everyone needs to do. And then there's 3 subsequent levels that you can move through. Having a prevention credential does bring legitimacy to the field of prevention. Lets people know that we are a field of science, and we're also a field of professionalism. And when you get these prevention credentials, hopefully you'll better be able to understand that scope of practice. So what it's okay for us to do and what it's not okay for us to do as prevention specialists. So here's the listing of the credentials. First one everyone must get is that registered applicant. The registered applicant lasts for 2 years. It is that introductory level where you will then be under that scope of practice and you'll be under that code of ethics. You cannot get experience hours unless you are under that scope of practice. So to move forward to any of the other levels, you need to be under the RA. So you'll get that first, get all your other education and experience hours. The next one that most people move into is the Ohio Certified Prevention Specialist Assistant. As you'll see, we love our acronyms, OCPSA. And that is the next credential. It can last for as long as you want, as long as you renew it every 2 years. And for some people, this is where they stay. The next level is the Ohio Certified Prevention Specialist. There are some educational requirements for this. You need to have at least associate's degree, and you will have to successfully pass the prevention specialist test. But this is also one that a lot of people will stay at for quite some time. And after you've been in the field for a while, you've been managing prevention services, you've been working with community members, school members, you may want to look at moving into the Ohio Certified Prevention Consultant. That's the highest credential. All of these do need to be renewed every 2 years, but that consultant level is the one that is more that high level prevention services. So not everyone gets to that level. So now why do I need to get credentialed? I already have other credentials, or I'm already doing all the programming. If, let's just say you're a community member or you're on a coalition, having credentialed people on that coalition can help you obtain funding, because there's some funding that has to be utilized by someone who is credentialed. And also the training that you'll go through to get these credentials will help you better understand prevention. It'll help you better understand how to implement it in the community, just make your coalition a much better run coalition. If you're a prevention worker, then prevention programming does require that the presenter or the facilitator be credentialed. I know that some curriculum is very easy, but then there's a lot of nuances and a lot of ways that that it can be skewed or changed up that would mess with the fidelity. So we need to make sure that whoever is presenting that prevention curriculum is certified. Again, prevention funding requires those credentials. You're also going to be able to better advocate, just like if you were a community member, you're better able to advocate for effective prevention. We know in the field of prevention that scare tactics don't work. And if you have that credential behind your name, people are going to be more likely to listen to what you have to say about that. Also get you under that scope of practice. We want to make sure that anyone who's doing prevention work understands that scope of practice. But Jennifer, I'm credentialed in another discipline. Well, you know what? Prevention programming, again, requires that you be credentialed under prevention. There's prevention funding again. And there are some differences with prevention. There's differences between treatment and prevention. There's differences between relapse prevention and primary prevention. So there are some subtle differences that really play out in the community and in direct service that you need to know if you're going to do prevention work. As an agency, if you are a certified agency in prevention, you will need credentialed staff to be in compliance with funding and certification boards. So individually and also as an agency. All right, so now we have a kind of an idea of what they are. Let's talk about how do we get them. First, like I said, first thing you got to do is become that registered applicant. That puts you under that scope of practice, and it's the only way you can get experience hours. When you look at the next credentials, you'll see that you need so many experience hours. You're not going to be able to get those unless you are under that scope of practice. You will need to complete the professional development plan, which I'm going to be making a video about that, because it needs to be thoughtful and personalized. We can't have everyone in the agency just fill out one and then put everybody's name on it. That is not the way that those professional development plans should be run. We also need to think about what is your career path? What do you want to do? And how is your prevention experience going to be as you move through? Maybe there's things that you want to eventually do. Maybe you just want to learn about some new things because you don't know very much. So think about that. Work with your supervisor to create that professional development plan. Once you've got that completed, you will go on to e-license and you'll upload it. You have to answer a bunch of questions about, are you 18? Have you completed high school? Are you living in the state of Ohio? All of those things. Then one piece of it is you'll upload that professional development plan. And once you upload that, you'll basically just wait for approval. It can take up to a couple months, but they're often really good about it and get it through a lot quicker. This was something that just went into effect November of 2020. I keep saying that you have to get that RA first because of this position paper that the board put out. And you can go onto the board website and read the full position paper, but just know that you need to have that RA first. All right, so what in the world is this professional development plan? Basically, it's just showing the 6 content areas that you will then have to get education in later. and showing how you're going to do that through education and experience. So this is a sample. Do not copy this and put your name on it because it's not going to be the same for everyone. But let's say that you are completing this and you're looking at that planning and evaluation area. You can pull down the definitions from the board website, exactly what in the world that means, and look through it and say, you know what, I think I had some college classes in evaluation, or I had some training in planning processes. So put that down under education plan, what you've already done. And then maybe think about what are some things you might want to do. Maybe that you want to do some online webinars and you saw that CADCA has something, or Prevention First, or Prevention Action Alliance, or PTTC. I'm just going to leave that there. You can look at that one up. Somebody might have some training that you want to do or that you're going to look through. So just list a couple of those things. And then under the work experience, what do you want to do? Do you know everything about planning and evaluation, or is there something you'd like to maybe work on? Talk with your supervisor. The example I put here is that maybe you'll work with the supervisor and work on 3 evaluation reports, just so you get that experience of knowing what in the world it is and how that works with prevention. The second domain is the life skills, group facilitation, prevention program, everything that has to do with prevention education. So maybe you're going to go to some of those, maybe you've already done some of those, whatever you want under that education. And then experience, maybe you can work with some more experienced coworkers, see how they do their prevention programming, see how you might improve or expand in your skills. We have the next domain is communication. Maybe you had a college course in speech and communication. Fabulous. But maybe your experience plan is, the agency has a social media page and I want to learn about making those quick prevention messages. So I'm going to work on some messages for the social media. So that's your experience. I'll let you look at the others here. And then finally, the last one. So again, you can look at the prevention definitions on the board website to really understand what each of these areas means. So that's it. That is the professional development plan. I just wanted to show you one of the content areas. These are the things that are under that planning and evaluation. So when you look at the content area on the website, you'll see all of these listed out under planning and evaluation. So as you're going through your form, your professional development plan, you might look at this and go, you know what? I've never really understood prevention program evaluation instruments, models, and strategies, and I'd love to learn more about that. So maybe you put that down under education. Or you might look at community readiness assessment, and you know that your community is getting ready to do one. So under experience, you can put that down as something you're going to help with. So use this as a way to focus your thoughts on what you put in those squares. So after you've turned in that professional development plan, and while you were waiting to be able to move on to the next credential, go ahead and obtain an unofficial copy of your college transcripts. You'll eventually need to put in the official ones, but for right now, we're just going to grab those unofficial ones, if you have any, to work on filling out that grid. Next, you'll get certificates to any workshops that you've done. Always save your certificates. And it's up to you. Everyone's different. I like to keep mine digitally. Some people like to keep them in a big folder. Totally up to how you want to do that. And then looking at the scope of practice and the supervisory requirements, make sure that your supervisor has the appropriate credentials. This is just a quick list of those supervisory requirements for the different credentials. So, if you've got an RA and OCPSA, that's your list of people you need to have. When you move on up, there's different requirements. All right, so when we're looking at what those prevention education definitions mean and what goes into each one, you're going to want to download that list so that if there's something that doesn't have an approval code, and I'll show you what that means, you can figure out where it fits just by the title or, again, the agenda or syllabi. Please keep all agendas. If you have any, I know sometimes they don't give out an agenda, but if you have an agenda, it helps show exactly what was discovered in the training. So when you are working on your grid, you can use this prevention education definitions to show you what to look for. So if you need more hours in, say, the communications content area, you can look at those definitions to see where you might look for trainings. Sometimes the definitions have things that you wouldn't think of. So it's a good way to go back and forth between putting education in and looking for education. So this is step 2. I understand that they're going to be changing the grid again. I will update this video when that happens, but for right now, this is what that grid looks like that you will have to put your information into. So each content area requires at least a certain number of hours, but that doesn't add up to the exact amount that you need. So make sure that when you are completed, you have the required amount of hours, and it'll tell you on the website how many you need. That's just showing what the minimum is, but you can have 20, 30, 40 hours in each section. So when you get certificates, and you're going to be wondering, well, how do I know where to put it or if it's even approved? These are 3 listings of ones that are approved, just so you can see what it looks like. So the first one on the top left, you'll see that, it's got all these numbers and dates, and then it says prevention, education, and service delivery, P2, 10.75. So you know that when you are looking to fill out your grid under P2, content area 2, it has 10.75 hours approved. So when you put that certificate course on your grid, that's what you'll do. You'll put it in that section with that number of hours. If you look on the top right, we've got 1.5 and then all these crazy numbers. Down at the very bottom in that circle, it says the Ohio Chemical Dependency Board, and it says R1 1.5 and P2 1.5. That P always is going to stand for prevention, and P2 means it goes into content area 2 and it's 1.5 hours. Now, I have a lot of people ask me about this R1, and all 3 of these you'll see it says R1. R1 is for those people who are renewing. So you'll have 10.75 or 1.5 hours of renewal. If all you are doing is renewing, you can look for that. Some things are renewal only and they don't have a P with them, so you can't use those for your initial credential. Then there at the bottom, you see we've got P7, which is the ethics, and then also the R1. So let's say you've got some college classes. One college class is a 3-hour semester class. Each class in semesters lasts for about 15 weeks. So if you're meeting 3 hours a week for 15 weeks, that's 45 clock hours. So hours from college can really add up. Now, yes, there's, depending on the credential, You can only go back so many years for half of the hours, but the other half of the hours can be old. So that's okay. If it's a quarter class, those usually last around 10 weeks. So it's the number of credit hours times 10. If you've got a college course that covered several different areas, you can split those hours. So you can take 45 hours and put 15 and 15 and 15 in 3 different areas. If you're going to do that, really for any of these, but definitely if you're going to do that, you need to look at finding that syllabus so that you can show those different topics, because you want to be able to prove that you actually did learn that stuff. And there at the bottom where it says the non-OCDPB is Ohio Chemical Dependency Professionals Board. And yes, some of them, if they're not officially approved, they don't have that number like I just showed you. Yeah, some of them can be used. We'll just have to watch and make sure and pick the right ones. So step 3, you're going to complete all of those forms. The grid, there's supervisory forms that your supervisor will have to fill out online. There's having your job description, all kinds of things. Get all those forms together. Make sure all the certificates have your name on them. I've had some people who maybe they got married and they may have different names, so you need to show proof on that is you. And then you'll scan those in when it tells you to upload that. Then there will be a section that tells you to send your official transcripts. You cannot send those transcripts on your own. You have to have the school send those. So, and that's the email address, which it's also on the bottom of the Chemical Dependency Professionals Board website. But you'll have the transcripts emailed directly to the board. The supervisor reference form is a form online at eLicense, and it needs to be someone who has those needed credentials. So let's say you are working in prevention, you're the only person in prevention and nobody has any of those needed credentials that we just talked about earlier. The supervisor for your prevention does not need to be the person who signs your check. It can be someone who just knows and understands your prevention work. So maybe someone in the coalition, maybe a board member, maybe there's another prevention professional. Right now, there is not an official, this is what supervision looks like definition, but it's not something where the person just signs off and then never sees you again. It does need to be that working relationship where they understand what you're doing, can be there for any assistance, and also be there to make sure that you're staying within your scope of practice. So step 4 is when you actually will sign in, apply for a new license is what it is. Get all those steps, pay, and submit your application. Whew, and then take a deep breath. You're going to be then awaiting for approval. If you apply for the OCPSA, you will receive notification that you were approved. Fabulous. Clap your hands. If you applied for the OCPS, you'll receive notification that you were approved to take the test. Oh, goodness. So what if you weren't approved? Well, you know what? Sometimes applications are returned just because there's something that needs to be replaced, to be explained. Maybe you turned in a certificate that didn't have your name on it, or you forgot to sign something. Don't get discouraged. Just send it back in. A large number of people get them sent back for something. So don't think that you're automatically out of the running. If you're not approved, make sure that you are applying for the correct credential, because sometimes when you go in there and click on things, it may be messed up. And if you don't understand, you can always contact the board. But if you are approved for that OCPSA, you're going to want to print out your certificate. They don't mail certificates anymore, so you'll have to print it out. I would suggest that you turn in a copy to your supervisor and then make sure that you get all that continuing education needed every 2 years to maintain it, because you don't want to have to go through this process again. It's really easier to maintain your credential than to get it. And then if you can, go ahead and start working on your next credential. What if you were approved to take the credentialing test? Oh my goodness. You know what? Go ahead and start studying. There are references and resources that I'll show you, but they will send you a listing of places where you can take that test at a testing site. Gone are the days that we would all be in one big huge room at the Columbus Convention Center. Now it's on a computer at a testing site. There are some practice tests, and the website will be linked to these as well. But you can take a screenshot and put all that in if you want to. These are some other resources. I put the websites here, but my suggestion and what I usually do is just Google those titles. So take a screenshot of these titles, pause the video and write it down, whatever. But these are all really good resources. So it's test day. Make sure you follow all the rules. Different testing sites might have slightly different rules, but you may have to leave your cell phone in your car. You may have to leave your purse in your car. Really make sure that you're not, don't bring food in with you, all of those kind of things, because you don't want that to be the reason that you get messed up. Relax, focus, take your time. You've got time, but don't take too long. But make sure you read all the options. Use some of those test taking skills of eliminating the ones that you know for sure aren't real, and then look at the ones that you're trying to decide between. When that test is over on the computer, you will get a provisional pass or fail. Now, for the most part, this will be what you will get. If you're on that cusp of passing or failing, they may review it just to make sure. So it's not really official until you receive the approved notification, but you're pretty sure that that will be your outcome of your test. So if you are approved for the OCPS or the OCPC and you pass the test, first do a little dance, then print out your certificate, turn that into your supervisor, and make sure that you get that continuing education, because you don't want to have to take that test again. It's not as tough as it used to be, but it's still not an easy test. So make sure that you maintain that with your credentials. Just want to show quickly, for those of you who've never been on the board site, this is what it looks like when you go into the section about prevention credentials. You can scroll down, there's all kinds of information on here. Also wanted to show you that this is the e-license. So the board website is where you get the information. E-license is where you actually sign in and apply for the license. So here's some final thoughts. Make sure that while you're going through this whole process that you are following that scope of practice and code of ethics. The scope of practice will tell you what you can do at each credential level. Make sure you maintain your credentials. You don't want to have to redo anything. You have to take an ethics course and other hours depending on the credential. So make sure that you get that done. You can go inactive for a period of time, as long as you are not providing prevention services. So if something comes up and you want to put a pause on that 2-year renewal, contact the board for that. And then, let other people know that they need to get their credentials as well. The more we have in our field and the more professionalism we have, the better our field will be. So there is my email. Feel free to reach out, ask questions. help. I can help you go over your grid, whatever you need to do, but we want to help you get your credentials. So thank you for listening. Hopefully this has provided some help for you, and we will get you those credentials.